latest take on Shakespeare's classic, The Tragedy of Macbeth, starring Denzel Washington. Corione, why don't we get us started on this segment? Tell us your thoughts,
Well,
please.
I really liked that it followed the original play, fairly closely. I don't think they deviated too much from the original content when it came to the plot and how everything played out. You know, as a personal thing, so like I said, it doesn't really deviate. For those of you who didn't study it in high school, the basic premise is a gentleman who is already a thane or a lord is basically told by a group of witches that he will become king. And his wife finds out that this prophecy exists and decides to try to make that prophecy a reality. So it almost becomes a self fulfilling prophecy with him killing the king, winding up in that position, and then a new prophecy coming along and him himself being killed in almost in a very similar fashion to his killing of the king is he is in turn turned upon. So great idea for a series. Of course, it's Shakespeare. It's classic literature. There's a reason why these things are the classic. Everyone has interesting, unique reads on this, especially when you go into it. For example, my thesis obviously was that the witches are in fact the actual heroes of the story because they were trying to warn everyone off and just no one would listen to them.
Oh
But
yeah, you
that's my
totally
take.
totally don't have a personal bias on that now or anything.
No, not at all, not at all. But you know that's where I see it. I thought it was a fantastic rendition of it. I thought the characters were very well portrayed. I myself have never been a part of a reenactment, like a redo of this play, but I have seen it many times. I thought the actors were fantastically cast in the roles, and generally, I was pretty happy with it. What did you guys think?
So
I'll let you go,
I
Parker.
I studied Macbeth way back in my junior year of high school, and so that was the last time I read it, which was many years ago. Um, so I went into this kind of, I wouldn't say blind, but familiar enough with the story. I mean, one thing about Shakespeare is while he did have a good way with words, a lot of his plots were fairly similar. Which, I mean, being the big show in town every week, that's not a huge deal. It's just something to note that a lot of his plays, either his tragedies would either end up, well, tragic to the bitter end, or his comedies would end up with everybody's married at the end, which is it's how he chose to tell a story. It is what it is. Um, the second that we started watching this, I absolutely enjoyed the entire thing. The artistic value um, of this version of the play alone really makes it stand out as its own product. Um, Denzel was fantastic. I don't think anybody else could really properly make Shakespeare come off so casually the way that he does with his Denzel personality. And that really played into it because it no longer comes off as, the formal play where we all sound intelligent and we make ourselves seem more than what we are. No, this was like, okay, yes, we're gonna keep the original writing and the original dialogue as it was written. However, Danzel's going to be Danzel in the process, and I think that worked. I think what also really works for this movie is the fact that it's basically a play that's a movie. Okay, I know that sounds kind of. What am I trying to say here? First of all, it was filmed entirely on sound stages. So they must have had this idea that they were going to take a play and they were, instead of like, instead of like when you watch a play like Hamilton, for example, where it's like they put cameras in the theater and you're taking shots of the different members. That's fine way to do a product. That's not a problem. They decided to take that and they decided to make it a movie at the same time. So we have a really good combination of a play that's actually adapted into a film, but it still has that play aspect. You hear the churning on of the different stage lights. They have different sound effects that they're not trying to hide the fact that this is taking place on a stage. And so it's like you are allowed, it's like you're going to the theater to watch a play, but instead of having to, squint from the way back cheap seats, you're in it. And it doesn't take away from the fact that it's a stage production. And I think that is what really and that's really what drives it home for me as why I think it was it really is a masterpiece. I can't disagree with that assessment, and I have nothing but praise for everyone who did this. Shakespeare is not easy to perform. Having done a little bit of reenactment in my high school projects, studying my various Shakespeare plays, so this is this is a fantastic piece of work by everybody involved. Real quick though, just to touch on one of the aspects, I've seen some complaints of people calling the whole thing a race swap nonsense. Okay, here's the thing, guys. It's a stage play. If you have a stage production, you use whoever auditions. And ever since Shakespeare started way back in the day, over the years, a lot of different people have played different roles throughout the years. And that's okay. And I think that's really what this movie does a great job of showing, is that it's not about what the people look like. It's about how well they capture the essence of the characters. And I think even shooting it in grayscale was taking it a step further and really just showing, guys, it's about the story. It's about the characters. Stop making a big deal about what they look like and just enjoy the show. And that's what I did, and I may watch this again sometime in the future. I may want to own a hard copy of this because I really liked it. And as far as a Shakespeare adaptation goes, this is definitely up there as one of, if not the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, my general rule of thumb when it comes to race swapping is if the actor who is swapped, like if the actor who doesn't necessarily look like the traditional way you would view this character who swapped in is really good in the role, then it's fine. Genius is like an affirmative defense here. If it's absolutely quality, if, for example, in Dune, they gender swapped Kynes. And I was originally concerned about it, but then I actually watched it and went, yeah, no, she was fantastic in the role. It makes total sense. I would have probably done the same thing if I was the casting director.
Yeah, so, and same with changing Starbuck to Kara Thrace in the sci-fi BSG. I mean, I was like, well, and I was actually, as a kid, I was a fan of the original Starbuck, and so like I was like, I'm just gonna make him a girl. Oh, come on, and they didn't do that for the sake of doing that. They did that, and they really worked well with the character on that, and so that ended up working out just fine. And I think that's similar what you got here. It's not. All right, John, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, my biggest thing, especially when it comes to that whole race switching thing, if you really want to be true to Shakespeare, then we need to play all females by men because women can't act. That's what Shakespeare wrote the play for.
I need to clarify to the audience, I'm nodding in agreement with the point you're making, not that we should go back to all males only in videos.
To me, you can't be mad about race if you're not first going to be mad about the genders, because that's what changed first, whether it was Patrick Stewart's rendition of Macbeth or the 2015 one, which was the one I watched before this one. Like, if you think that the original display was the best display, then you can only enjoy Macbeth at Shakespeare in the Park. You can't enjoy it in any form on film. And if you enjoy any of the films, then your point is entirely wrong. Like, if race switching for this one is the one that like made you not enjoy it versus the 2015 one, which was mostly white people, like, you're dumb. There's no other way to put it, because
Yeah,
if you want everything to be the way it's always been, then that means that women aren't allowed to act, women aren't allowed to be on film, period. And you can't watch any Macbeth unless it's at Shakespeare in the Park. You can't watch any Shakespeare unless it's at Shakespeare in the
can't
Park.
watch any TV at all. You just
Period.
can only
No,
go to
because
stage productions with males only.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And personally, no, I loved this movie. I thought that Macbeth, especially this one versus the 2015 one, I loved that they didn't try to change the words. And I think it's exactly what you said, Parker, in terms of just Denzel crushing it. Like, I didn't feel like Denzel became Macbeth. I feel like Macbeth finally came to life because Denzel did Macbeth. Like Patrick Stewart doesn't even come close to Denzel's Macbeth, because Denzel made it look like that's how he's always talked in every single one of his movies. And I felt like that should have bothered me. Like, why does he keep saying doth and whoth and thou? But I didn't say any of that until just now. Like, watching it, that never really crossed my mind until I think about breaking it down. Like, he was speaking the oldest of the Old English, and I didn't care. I watched every line, every scene, and I loved it in every instance. And that, I think, is really what this film proved, is that the right actors with the right conviction will create the right film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just getting to the point, like, if, we've got a perfect character here, or character study by Denzel in this movie, because in order to deliver the lines in that Denzel style, he really had to understand his role, he really had to understand the wording, and he really had to understand the whole plot in order to make it make sense. So you can tell he did his research, and he's not the only one. Everybody had that level of understanding of what they were doing, that even if your ability to translate Old English on the fly is not as great as it could be, the conviction that they're delivering the lines in gives you that.
And
yeah,
not just
and the whole reason I brought it up was because that was some of the from certain folks that follow some of the people that Corione and I are very familiar with. That was their one reason for not watching the movie, and I had to call them out. I'm like, you are depriving yourself of something great over something arbitrary and stupid. You just watch the movie and decide for yourself. And like I said, from the second this thing started to the very end, my wife and I were enthralled. I think this is one of the best adaptations, and I hadn't even heard of the 2015 version. And if I did, it probably was unremarkable. Whereas this, came at you with the grayscale, the 4:3, and just all kinds of artistic stuff on top of an already great play. And I think it was perfect in enhancing the overall atmosphere and feel of the play. And it's just that I could probably just do a whole episode just on this show, or just on this movie alone, because if I was an English teacher, Apple just gave me a gold mine of content to work with if I was teaching Macbeth. I would just study the play first, and then it would conclude with watching this movie, and then doing more case study, as you said, into just the adaptation and the perspective. Because, yes, while Denzel feels like Denzel, he does, as John said, I think this is probably the best iteration of the Macbeth character that has ever been seen, and I think even Shakespeare himself would be in awe of this production and this feature. I mean, let alone the fact that his work is still talked about to this day, but also just seeing it like this, I think this was a great tribute and is one of the best things to ever hit cinema.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I do think that your class is a little bit backwards. If it was up to me, I would make everybody watch the older ones first, and then when the kids say, well, why does this matter, I'd be like, just wait till the end of the lesson. Just wait till the end of the lesson. We'll start Denzel is he's one of my favorite actors of all time. He's everything he's done from Man on Fire to Towns to
Equalizer.
Defense, Equalizer. Like Denzel is one of the
Remember
greatest
the
actors
Titans.
of our generation. Yeah, and
Sorry,
I
I'm
think
just trying to help.
yeah, I appreciate it. But when it comes to this play, like I remember reading this one in high school and not caring until one of my teachers found this like different version of the play. Right, so it was rewritten into these pamphlets where they had jokes written off to the side. Like, there's a reason this was a joke in that time, and this is what they actually said in layman terms. And that made me love Shakespeare. I was like, oh, I just don't understand his English. It's a different English than mine. Just, like living in the South versus living in the North, you're going to have a different version of English. You're going to have different idioms, different jokes that work. And this movie was the first time where I watched Macbeth in Old English while feeling like I was both in now and watching what Shakespeare had intended from the beginning. Like, the way this movie was filmed and cut and cropped, I don't really feel like we were watching a movie about England. I feel like we were watching a series of stage transitions about a play about a story. Just blew my mind that, like, I didn't need any world building. I didn't need any world enhancing. I just needed to listen and enjoy. And it was fun.
And if you want to get a rough idea of how timeless this story is, do check out the 2006 version of the tragedy of Macbeth, where they set it up as a gangland style story, like a modern gangs kind of style story, because it translates. A lot of Shakespeare's plays that aren't about kings or specific individuals, you can put them in other genres and they still work. And that's a really quality thing to be able to do. If you can take your art and translate it into a completely different theme and it still works, you've tapped into something really deep and really good.
Yeah, definitely. And whatever the guy, I can't remember their names off the top of my head. The people who put this production together, I mean, I don't know if the style would work exactly the same. Maybe try color, or maybe mess with some of the different coloration features. But I could definitely see this style working for a couple of other of Shakespeare's plays, or even just old classic plays to begin with. I mean, this integrated soundstage storytelling, I think, is what really sold it to me as a perfect work of art, was because it was like I said, it was a great integration of cinema and stage without having to like favor one or the other. And so I definitely would like to see another production. What specifically? I don't. You know what? You could do this. What you could do is this. You could take the soundstage idea, right? But then let's maybe try, I don't know if any of you ever saw or are familiar with the Broadway production of Beauty and the Beast. Maybe let's go like A Midsummer's Night Dream and go more extravagant with more colors, with like, more just a lot more character, and see if we can capture not necessarily the same feel, but if that magic really is there, because this could be the future of telling all Shakespearean plays, as well as just plays in general, using sound stages, because that's one of the parts of the illusion of the theater, is you're not really going for the effects usually. You're going for the performances of the actors in person. You're going for the story. The backdrops are just kind of there to, like, keep your interest. This allows for more integrated special effects, but also keeping that sort of magic of the soundstage, of the play stage at the same time. And so I would like to see more productions like this. I think it's fantastic overall. Any last thoughts on Macbeth before we move on?
Yeah, I'd like to see Othello done in this style. I think that would really work well.
I would like to see Othello maybe done in like grayscale with maybe some blue tone or something along that, just touch the color, because like, yeah, you could do it like this grayscale style exactly the same way if that's really what you want, but then it'd feel like, okay, are we just copy pasting the same style, or are we gonna tweak it a little bit? That's only my point, is like, I'd like to just see some tweaks, some changes, because this, it's perfect. John, any final thoughts?
I want to see these people's rendition of Midsummer's Night's Dream.
But just with more color.
Oh, yeah, no, it has to be. I mean, from Puck to just the whole story is more bright and lively. So I just really want to see these people put together that play now, because like this just feels like a whole new Shakespeare troupe.
Actually, you know what would be super cool? Do Midsummer and have all the Fae be in color and everyone else in black and white.
Yo, that would be awesome. Like when Puck shows up, that's the only time there's actual color. And then when he disappears, that's like kind of like the transition to chaos. Oh, that's really fun. I like that.
Yeah, no, I'd watch that. I'd watch any. I honestly, Apple TV does Shakespearean plays. I'm probably gonna watch them now automatically.
Yeah, for sure.
Real quick before we get